Hello, Ryan from Huckabuy here. If you're watching this video, it is a demo of our software and what each one of our three softwares can do to help your site with the technology side of SEO. So let's jump into it really quick. This is going to be about a 10 to 15 minute video, depending on how it goes. Now, first of all, Huckabuy, we take the software approach to SEO. So outside of link building, content, internal link structure, all of that you're doing currently, if you're an SEO or you're a digital marketer or something on those lines, this all happens prior to when you do that. So let's take a look at how it actually works. So first of all, taking care of technical SEO first, there's a couple of points that we need to understand is that with Google's crawlers, first of all, Google's bots, they come in, they crawl your website. And not only does Huckabuy help with the crawling portion of it, it helps with the rendering portion of it and the indexing portion of it. Now, if you were to say after that, that's when the ranking happens, okay, that's great. And your website somewhat falls in this little line right here where you're doing on-page SEO, like I mentioned before, the content or the link building or anything like that. So this right here is the area that Huckabuy focuses on, especially with the upcoming core algorithm update that's coming in May of 2021 or May of this year. So let's get into a little bit about what our software does. So first of all, you need to understand the challenges that not only Google has with your website, but you as a marketer or an SEO has. So can Google crawl, render, and index your most important content? There's an issue with that because Google has two crawlers. They've got their HTML crawler and they've got their renderer. And when the HTML crawler runs into something like JavaScript, it just basically says stop because it can't render that JavaScript. So at that point, and with a lot of websites nowadays, most websites are really, really JavaScript heavy. With Google's bots, you're limited with the crawl budget, and if you have JavaScript on your website, it eats into that crawl budget because then they have to switch to that renderer, which basically renders the website like a normal person will see. And we're going to actually see that here a little more later in the demo. Now, the marketer's challenge is you've got limited development resources. Whether you're a big company, a startup, anything like that, you might need to hire an agency or something like that to actually fix these technological issues that are hurting your website as far as page speed is concerned or rendering is concerned and not allowing Google to crawl your website. And there's a huge difficulty with that technical SEO because there's a lot of code writing and a lot of CSS and HTML modifications that need to happen because of this. This is where Huckabuy software actually comes into play. I think you're really going to like this actually. And then after that, so we've got three different types of software. We've got our structured data, we've got dynamic rendering, and we've got page speed. We're going to cover each one of those. So first off, we're going to talk about structured data. If you're an SEO or you're a digital marketer, you should know, and I'm going to say should with a little light tone there. You should know what structured data is. If you don't, a quick description of that is, okay, these are little bits of information that Google uses to help better understand your website. So if you're an e-commerce website, those little bits of information are going to be price, availability, reviews, and those rich results actually will show in organic search results as far as when Google indexes your site, if they are marked up correctly with structured data. Once again, our software takes care of that, and it's extremely comprehensive in the way that it takes care of that too. Certain other types of structured data that don't necessarily show in rich results, but are crucial to Google's understanding of your website are something like maybe a customer service contact email or customer service phone number. Another thing to keep in mind, also Google is going mobile first or has gone mobile first. So they're really focusing on that. Well, structured data is, let's back up here a second. Voice search is 100% powered by structured data. So if you don't have that structured data on your website, you're going to be losing out on a lot of the OK Googles and that kind of thing. So dynamic rendering is next. Well, dynamic rendering that allows you to index more content on your website. And we'll get into exactly how that works, and I'll show you. And then obviously page speed. That the title of that kind of speaks for itself. It's simply our rendition of attacking the speed of which websites load on any device, whether it be mobile or desktop. And yes, we attack mobile first, but I'll give you some tips and show you how to kind of track that and what our page speed software can do. So let's get into it here. First off, websites are more complicated. Search results are more competitive. Google really struggles to understand that content. I would hate to say this, but I guarantee you, if you're looking at our software, Google is not ranking you for all the keywords that you could rank for. The reason being is that when in regards to dynamic rendering, a couple of things that are happening with your website if you're not having the correct software, or if you're looking at Huckabuys and you're looking to fix something like that, you already understand that websites are more complicated, search results are more competitive, and it's only going to get more and more complicated and more competitive. So Google struggles to understand that content. They're not. If I told you that Google is not ranking you for all your keywords, would you believe me? Would you believe our CEO, Jeff Atkinson, in the fact that we've proven that time and time again with the case studies with our software? 50% of search queries, they don't result in a click. It's most of the time a direct answer, or what we consider a no-click search result. And then users are constantly demanding more information on search results. So you can see here in this screenshot, well, there's a recipe for pumpkin cookies. There's recipes at the top, and then you've got the organics down below. And all of those have the time that they take to prepare and to cook, the reviews. That is all structured data. And if you're not indicating that structured data to Google, you're missing out on all those different search results that you could increase your search or increase your click-through rate with. So, first of all, structured data markup. It increases your ranking keywords. It allows you to capture rich results. Now, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of rich or different structured data markups, but there's only about 30 that will actually show in rich results. But if you have those rich results, and I'll actually give you a perfect example. So if we take a look at Google algorithm update, and we just search that. So you've got Moz, Search Engine Journal, and then you've got Huckabuy right here. And you'll notice these little drop-down boxes. That is a rich result. That is what we call FAQ markup. And you notice how that whole section right there takes up a huge amount of real estate. And the best part, and we've proven this, is that when someone clicks on these right here, that actually results as a CTR, or a click-through rate. And if you're an SEO or a digital marketer, you know that click-through rate is a direct effect on one of Google's ranking signals for whatever page you're trying to rank. So that's a benefit to rich results. So going back to the presentation here, it completes the knowledge panel as well. So if we were to just type in, let's say, Pluralsight. This is an online learning company. This is the knowledge panel right here. We can indicate what type of industry you're in. We can indicate your customer service contact phone number, all these little tiny bits of information that Google wants and helps them understand what kind of website you are and what kind of service or product you offer will go right here in the knowledge panel. And that is solely benefited from structured data. So as you can see in this screenshot, you have what the website content is, and then you have the code behind it, which we write structured data in what's called JSON LD, which is Google's most accepted form of coding, where it gives, you can see here, the SKU, the MPN, the brand, if there's any reviews for it, if there's an author or article that's written about this, and then that all shows in these rich results of, hey. And that all shows in these rich results right here. So that's just kind of a breakdown of structured data. Now, if we were to take a look here at structured data, and to give you an example, we showed the FAQs earlier. This is the page that actually shows FAQs. So we're going to go to Google's structured data testing tool and run a quick test. And then we're going to go to the rich results tool just to show you how it's actually marked up. So you can see that it has the FAQ page right there. And that's what's going to indicate to Google, hey, why don't you show these in search results as well? And we'll give this a second to load. It's been pretty slow today. So while we're taking a look at that and while that's loading, we'll go into FAQ page. And it's going to show the same thing in the rich results tool. So it's going to show what the question and what the answer is and what's selected. So you'll notice we actually inject that code into your website once it's actually running. All right, so I had to pause that just so this could run. It takes a little bit of time, but you'll notice here's the FAQs right here. It also shows the question and what the question is and the answer and the applicable answer to that type of question. So depending on how this is coded on your website, our software will look for these Q&As, or sorry, not Q&As, but FAQs, and mark those up accordingly so you can get those rich results and really increase that click-through rate. Okay, so that's your quick definition of structured data and a quick demo of what our structured data software does. Now you can understand the benefits in that structured data you'll see here in this code. If you have to write that or hire a developer to write that across every single page of your website, that's a really time-intensive and a really expensive project. And our software can do that in a matter of days. So especially large web pages that have 50,000, 100,000, 300,000 pages, that eliminates that years long. And the other benefit is that our company is focused on Google changing those qualifications for rich results. So if for some reason you don't qualify for rich results with our markup, we'll detect it, and we're really good at doing this in about a 24-hour period, and then we roll that out to all of our websites so that they can requalify for that structured data. Whereas if you had a developer doing that, it would take them weeks, sometimes even months to do. So that is structured data. Now let's get into dynamic rendering a little bit. Websites are made for humans and not bots. The other thing I like to say is that Google doesn't really care about your business or the website. All Google cares about is that user interaction that human or that person has with your website. So JavaScript, we've touched on that, is really, really hard for search bots to render. And Google only has a limited crawl budget per website. I mean, if you think about it, there's billions of websites out there. If they were to crawl each one thoroughly, they would never be able to do it, or they could, but it would just be a huge resource and cost money pit, really. So because of that, and because JavaScript is so hard to render, they miss a lot of your content. And this can be blocked by simply something like a chatbot on your website. A chatbot is something that is really JavaScript intensive and prevents those HTML bots from actually scanning your website. So how does the dynamic rendering work with Huckabuy? Well, let's take a look at that. Huckabuy creates a perfect for Google clone of your website. And when we say perfect for Google, it means flat HTML. So we'll take that JavaScript, we'll actually render it in HTML and serve it to the Google bots as a cached layer. So what that does is anytime a bot comes into your website, it simply sees that dynamically rendered version with all this deep and all this rich content that they were never able to crawl before because that JavaScript was blocking them. And then that's where you get those increase in the amount of keywords that you're ranking for. But at the same time, it still maintains a quality user experience because that person will see the website that you intended to have. So the benefits from that are indexes and ranks more content in a timely manner. And I'm going to show you a perfect example of this. So here we've got Huckabuy's website. And if we look at the page source for this, you can see that there are hundreds of lines of code. And this is what a human sees. This is also, if you don't have dynamic rendering, this is what the Google bot will see. Now we've got a nice little extension here. And I'm going to go here and say, okay, well, I want to really appear as Googlebot. If you're wondering what this extension is, it's called User Agent Switcher. So now, if I refresh this site, this is how, because I've switched to Google's bot, you just make sure. And then I'm going to refresh it here. So Google sees the site the same way a user does, but if we go to view page source here, there's one line of code. Yes, that's a long line of code, but all of that content is still in that one line of code. So you can imagine what Google's bot comes in. There's no JavaScript interfering with it. They're like, holy cow, look at all this information. That's where you see your keyword ranks increase. That's where you see the amount that you're going to be indexed for on a larger scale. So this right here is so super fast for Google's HTML bot to go in, and they don't have to go in and say, well, because there's a fancy menu that's got animations or something on it that's JavaScript heavy. So now I switch back to the main user agent. So you'll notice here, if I highlight over this, hang on one second, let's do a refresh. If I highlight over this, default, there we go, and then refresh. So I've switched back to the default user. All this flashy stuff that pops up, that can be considered JavaScript. Or if there's a little chatbot down here, because my gorgeous face is in the way of this, but those chatbots are really JavaScript intense as well. Okay, so our last piece of software that we'd like to touch on. So first of all, May 2021, Google has announced almost a year in advance that they're going to have a core algorithm update that really focuses on the user experience. And there's 3 metrics that you need to be careful of. Huckabuy, and bless our engineers, they have worked day and night to get the software to simply just speed up your website and really attack those 3 core web vitals that Google talks about that they're going to be focusing on. So first of all, about 37%, or about all websites, really. Okay, so first of all, the typical website Google Lighthouse score is going to be right around 37 to 39. That's not good. And you can look up any website and comment on the video, prove me wrong. Yeah, there's going to be some good ones out there that have focused on this. But at the same time, when you have our page speed software installed, it attacks certain things like those core web vitals in an effort to really make it so that when this algorithm hits, you're outperforming your competition in page speed. So to give you an example, you can go to PageSpeed Insights. Okay, so here is Google PageSpeed Insights. If you're not familiar with this and you're an SEO, I would urge you to get familiar with this very quickly, because this is going to indicate what core web vitals you need to attack on your website. And those core web vitals are a couple of things. It is first input delay, largest contentful paint, and cumulative layout shift. Now you'll notice Google has these blue flags by them because they are the core web vitals. So Cool is a customer of ours, and they've allowed us to use their name. So when they first had PageSpeed, they were not passing any of these core web vitals. And yeah, you might get alarmed at the overall page speed of 28, but there are certain things in this PageSpeed Insights that they don't take account for, like HTTP2 or something on those lines. So that's going to be modified. So what's the best way to actually check your page speed score? Well, if you open up an incognito window, you simply go to that URL. And man, that loaded fast. That was great. You simply go over here to Lighthouse. Now, it's not going to give you one of the core web vitals, but to get a true score, make sure that you're not running any extensions in your incognito window. And it's going to give you a few things to work on so that page speed score you can either give to your development team or your marketing team or even Huckabuy to actually work on. All right, so here we are. We've got a cumulative layout shift of 0, and you'll notice that the cumulative layout shift is 0.2. Well, this is because it's a rolling 28-day period. Now, first contentful paint, that is not a core web vital, but largest contentful paint is. Now, the other core web vital that is not in here is first input delay, and that's something that Huckabuy is actually that's what one of the things that our page speed product actually attacks. So that is a good example and a couple of good demos of what Huckabuy's 3 products can do for your website in regards to structured data, which is hugely important in rich results, dynamic rendering, which allows Google to get a more in-depth and better understanding of your website as well. So having structured data and dynamic rendering along with page speed, you're literally creating that perfect world for Google to actually index your website to a point where they know that the user is going to be happy with it. And because that user would be happy with it, they're going to serve that above your competition. So I hope this demo helps out. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us. You can visit our website at huckabuy.com. We have our contact information all over the place. So thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.